I feel like the advice that I've been given, like growing up, my parents have always been like, yeah, like it's tough, but like you'll get through it, like it's a part of life, like everyone goes through it. I'm like, I know everyone goes through it, but like how do you go through it, you know? Hi everyone, welcome back to the Gray Area Podcast.
As you know by now, this is the podcast where we talk about the messy, confusing parts of relationships, especially while we're in college. But I'm Jinny. I was one of the hosts of the first episode with Kyra here. I'm a senior graduating in just 2 weeks, which is crazy. We're filming this on a Thursday and it's the last week of classes, and for me this is my last day of classes, so there are a lot of emotions going on for me. But how about you, Kyra?
Yeah, as Jinny mentioned, we're both seniors, obviously. I'm studying occupational therapy, and my last week of classes actually ended last week, so this is my finals week right now, so it's a little bit stressful. I feel like it's been hard for me to kind of focus on a lot of the things. I'm like trying to get through finals week, and then I can let myself like relax and hang out with my friends, but that period is only going to be about 2 weeks, so it's all just like happening so fast and a lot of things to process, but we're excited to talk with our special guest here today. I'll let her introduce herself. This is Dr. Michelle Dexter.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. I'm going to get used to my new microphone. I am really happy to be here with you all. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's so exciting. So much work goes into, completing a 4-year degree and then going on to complete further accomplishments and goals. And I think a lot can really go into that, a lot of emotions. I know we're going to talk about a lot of things today. I am happy to be here. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Psychiatry and the Behavioral Sciences, and I do clinical work, teaching, and research. So I've been at Student Health since 2011.
Yay. Thank you for being here with us today. I think we'll have a lot of meaningful conversations, and you were telling us a little bit before about the class that you're teaching this semester.
Yeah, so one of the things that we noticed since 2011 was this idea of students really benefiting from knowing concepts and applying concepts related to resilience, which I think you all had a lot of questions about that today. So we actually have a general education course called The Science of Resilience. That's a class that I teach, and we also just launched a new minor, psychiatry and the behavioral sciences minor. PBHS is our prefix. And so it has such really interesting classes that my colleagues created. I'm the director of curriculum and academic programs, but I also am the advisor for that program. So it's really fun, I think, to see students just really take a mastery of this information and start to think about and apply these concepts in terms of life and career.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And I think building resilience is something that Kyra and I have been talking about recently as graduation is approaching. But I mean, in terms of that, like, at least for me personally, the overwhelmingness is only starting to set in recently.
Yeah.
I think in the months following up to this point, I've been so busy with classes, my internship, just everything else in my life that it hadn't really felt real, or like it hadn't really set in yet that graduation was so soon. But now, again, it's the last week of classes. Things are starting to feel real. I'm feeling, I don't know, I personally have been feeling a little bit overwhelmed with how fast everything seems to be going. But how about you?
It's so fast. I feel like, also I just want to say thank you again for being here. We're really excited to hear your insights, and we're really grateful that you are here as a guest. But I think it's just all throughout college, it's always felt like you've been in this place and it almost feels like you're going to be there forever. Like, especially like I feel like the first 3 years, you're like, this is like kind of, it feels like this is going to happen for a long time. Like the end is so far away. Even at the beginning of my senior year, I was like, we have like 9 months until the end. And now in the last week of classes, my last week of finals, like I'm still finding that I'm in this like denial. It's like my body's like not letting me accept that there's an end that's coming. And I think it's part of it too is like these new transitions, like not knowing how to navigate moving forward. Like I've lived with my roommates, for example, for 4 years, and so we're all going different places post-grad, and it's hard to imagine what life might be like when these very core aspects of your life are different, and like where to go from there. It's like my mind isn't letting me process it, I feel like. I think the things that are letting me process it are like you know, I can't avoid the last of things. Like, okay, my last final. Like, I had my last cycling class yesterday with, like, my favorite, like, USC cycling instructor. And I was, like, getting emotional during Dancing Queen. I was like, why am I, like, tearing up right now? Like, this is sad. But yeah, I think it's, like, I realized that I haven't let myself fully process it. And a lot of emphasis on trying to be present. But I think I'm just having trouble with that at this time.
Yeah. I don't know if you have like many seniors in your class that you're teaching, but if you do, like, are they feeling similarly to us? Like, have you noticed that?
I think this is such a common experience across the university.
Yeah.
And I think you all talked about things that really, you know, are so common. And one of the things is, you know, there's a lot of different emotions. It's not just one thing. The other thing you all talked about is sometimes we're moving so quickly, we don't stop and slow down and even identify what's there. And the third piece, just to be really radically genuine, is change is hard.
Yeah.
Change is just hard for any of us, whether it's like we are changing our cycling class or where we live, or, you know, any type of change is really hard. And it's also true that we're so incredibly resilient as people. So sometimes I think we underestimate that change or invalidate how hard that change is. But it's sometimes helpful to just really take a moment and pause and really be able to process all those pieces.
Yeah. I think I've been trying to move so fast for so long that I'm only now starting to realize that. And I'm realizing, like, I don't know, I don't want to look back like a year from now and look at this time and think that I really regret not stopping to, like, enjoy things more. I don't know. It's also, like, a little bit different for me. I am also, like, graduating a year early, so, you know, my time is already, like, shortened, so it's felt even faster. But because, like, you know, I've been trying to, like, I've been having to take, like, a heavier course load each semester to, like, graduate during this time, and, like, I've been working throughout every semester. Some, like, college throughout, I've enjoyed it so much and made so many good friends, but at the same time I'm like, oh, like, I'm kind of ready for this, like, constant grind to be over. So up until I think I'd say this month, I kept saying to, like, my friends and family, like, honestly, I, like, you know, I am sad about college ending, but I am also excited. I am, like, excited to start this new, like, chapter of my life. Now, though, I'm like, wait, the chapter's ending. The chapter's ending, and it's been, I feel, like, very, like, bittersweet now. I'm not really sure, like, May 15, when we're at commencement, how that is gonna feel either.
I don't even know if, like, when I'm at commencement, if it'll even really fully hit me that, like, it's gonna be the end. And I think part of it too is since I'm in like a progressive degree program, so I've already started my graduate classes, and I technically finished my undergraduate coursework last year. The transition, like, with, like, final undergrad classes and stuff feels different. So I feel like that's even taking me more out of it, because it's like, this isn't real. I think I'm just feeling a lot of fear. But it's like the anxiety isn't, like, I know that I'm afraid of something, but, like, the anxiety isn't present, if that makes sense. Like, I know I'm gonna be afraid, like, when the time comes, but it just feels so hard to accept that it's happening. And I don't know how to, like, make myself accept it, you know? But yeah, there's just so many things that I'm trying to do too. It feels like when the days are dwindling down, it's like, I want to do this, I want to do this. Like, even though I'm from Southern California, like, it's my first time living in LA, and I'm going to be moving back home after grad, and that's going to be a new transition itself. But then it's like, oh, I want to do this in LA, like, I want to make sure I go to this coffee shop. I'm like, there's only so many days left in the week where I can do those things, and I'm really just trying to, like, soak it all up and, like, really be present. And you mentioned a lot too about, like, change is just, like, so difficult, and I feel like the advice that I've been given, like, growing up, my parents have always been like, yeah, like, it's tough, but, like, you'll get through it, like, it's a part of life, like, everyone goes through it. I'm like, I know everyone goes through it, but, like, how do you go through it, you know?
It's really, I mean, both are true, right? And I think what you all are mentioning is this idea that our emotions are messengers, right? They send us information, and multiple things can show up at the same time, and then we can decide, like, oh, this is interesting, you know, like, this is showing up for me, or this other emotion is showing up for me. And then even taking little tiny moments to pause and notice those things can then help you decide, like, is this a moment that I want to practice acceptance?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, to be quite honest, for me personally, and lots of folks that I've talked about this with, acceptance is one of the hardest concepts to practice. But maybe like we could try something. Do you have a search engine nearby that you can pull up?
I do.
Okay, so if you don't mind, just typing in emotion wheel.
Okay.
And you all mentioned these concepts of like overwhelming, sad. And so maybe if you just can find one that you can read, take a moment and look at it together and see, like, if you just take a moment and pause and just allowing your eyes to look over the different words on there, are there any emotions that maybe really stand out to you that capture how, what your experience is in this moment? And maybe it's lots of things.
I really do think one of the words standing out to me right now is overwhelmed. It's under the pie of like fearful and anxious, but definitely overwhelmed with how many things are happening at the same time. I don't know, I've also, maybe not like this severely, but I feel like recently I've been also dealing with some feelings of like insecurity, like feeling like inadequate is one of the words here. I try not to like ruminate too much on that feeling, but I was in the job hunt for like a really long time. Only recently figured out like what my post-grad plans are, but that process was so like emotionally tiring, and I think it definitely like had an effect on like my confidence, just having to go through so many different applications and interviews and like not get the like exact like maybe result I was hoping for. So those were things that I've been feeling now and like up until this point. What's standing out to you, Kyra?
I think for me, like, I instantly gravitated towards like the fearful and sad pieces of the pie. I think within those it would be probably feeling scared, and then within sadness feeling, I feel like there's like a sense of grief that comes with graduating.
Absolutely.
And just like a lot of loss that's happening, but at the same time you're gaining something. You're gaining a literal degree. Like you're gaining a degree from all the years of education, and you're gaining a community like once you leave university, and so many friends and love and support in that way, but it's also like you're losing this time in your life in a way. And so I think that like it's like a dichotomy that I'm trying to balance, but I know like it doesn't have to be one thing or the other. There can be space for all of that.
And I think what you are both pointing out is that if we can just actually pause and label what's going on for us, actually there's good research on the fact that that can decrease the intensity of the emotion.
By like identifying it?
So just by doing what you just did of like, oh yeah, and even validating it, right? If we say to ourselves like, I'm feeling scared, but that doesn't make sense because I shouldn't feel scared. There's other that actually can make it kind of linger or bigger. But if we just say like, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. So for so many people, this is also their experience graduating. Just taking a moment to pause, label, and validate can just kind of make it a little bit easier instead of it being like a little more kind of like stuck or inflexible. And the second process that you mentioned that I think is so true for all of us is this idea that our mind typically goes to kind of like the threat first, right? It's super helpful, like evolutionary wise of to evolve, we had to be able to identify threats all the time. So our brain is constantly scanning for negative things. So it makes sense that we would bring that up. But then you both also mentioned like joy, excitement, like feeling proud of yourselves. So these things are also there too. And I think that's a tool like this can sometimes be helpful for us. Like, yep, okay, that fear is there. Let me recognize that. And also, like I just did something really hard and I'm also proud of myself. I don't know. What do you all think about that?
Yeah, I think that letting go of that judgment is super helpful. I also took a mindfulness class here at USC actually, and I feel like it actually changed my life because that aspect of labeling things was like super helpful rather than just like identifying with it. Like I am this emotion or feeling, just noticing that it's there. It has been really helpful to just like going through the motions of life, but sometimes you can forget about those strategies when like the stress is really overwhelming or when the emotions are super overwhelming.
I think like this process of like naming your emotions is something very valuable. I we talked about this before, but we both like journaling, and I found that is like very helpful in trying to like name what I'm feeling and work it out like through my writing. But something that really resonated with me, like when we were looking at this wheel, is like it feels like grief in a way. Like you're letting go of like a major part of your life.
Absolutely.
Like, I know I'm not like losing it per se, but it does kind of feel like that, like you're losing some part of yourself or like a huge part of your like environment. I think that's something I've been feeling as well.
I think something that I heard recently was that like when we experience emotions, we tend to like remember the negative ones like so strong, like they linger for so long, and like the positive things are so fleeting. Like the happiness and like the excitement are just like yay, and then it's like okay. But then when you're sad, like it sticks with you, and like it really like you can feel like it's so overpowering on you sometimes. And I think like kind of like what you were talking about, Jinny, I think there's just that fear feels like really, for me at least, just like a cloud over like the happiness that I want to experience. And obviously like I'm super excited, but there's so many things that I am worried about that are hard to kind of quiet down.
It's true. We do respond to emotions differently. Like emotions that we're not uncomfortable with, like happiness, right? Like we can probably all remember times in the past week where we felt happy, right? We probably didn't have this fear of like, oh my gosh, like what if I'm happy forever? What if this happiness just stays and it never goes down, right? And so we just let it come and go. We don't interrupt that process, but we don't do that with emotions that we're a little bit more comfortable with. So actually ways in which we respond to these emotions can make them linger a little longer. And I think that your labeling of grief makes so much sense. Grief doesn't have to be loss of a person, it can be loss of a role, loss of an experience. And so we know how complicated the grief process is and that it really takes time.
And I know that like grief process is supposed to like culminate in acceptance, which we talked about is hard to achieve sometimes. But maybe like part of this grief is, I don't know, it's feeling real that once I graduate, I'm kind of losing this status as like a student, and like I think there are like, I don't know, like privilege is the right word, but like, you know, when you're a student, you have like certain leeway with things. You're expected to like make mistakes, like you're expected to be always like be learning, and you know that's still the case like when you are a real world adult, whatever that means. But I like went for me, and I know it's different for you like in your OT program, but like for me, like I'm now starting like the corporate world like full time, and it's definitely different. I'm like kind of I'm scared about like what that's gonna look for me, and like if I'm gonna be ready right away to like make that transition. I don't know.
I feel like it's just like the mourning process, like you mentioned, and like the mourning of roles, I think has been helpful for me in this process. Like it feels like I'm shedding a new skin or something, especially with going into like the depths of my graduate program. Like I'm really excited to continue like my coursework and like pursue the path I've always wanted to, but it feels like I'm letting go of such a pivotal time in my life. Like undergrad was so important to me. And I also don't want it to feel like it's like the only important part of my life too, because I know like when you talk about college, like these are like the best, people say these are the best years of your life, like you're gonna meet like all your lifelong friends, and all that has definitely been very true for me. Like I don't want to mourn so long where I'm like always thinking about like, oh, I remember when it was when we were in college, like when we were like, obviously there's not like that's not a bad thing to do, but I think just like allowing it to be where it is, and like recognizing that all that time has passed, like it doesn't mean that like the memories and like the amazing things I got to experience, like they'll always be with me no matter what.
Yeah, you all don't need me here. I'm summarizing all of your wisdom basically, but let me summarize your wisdom again in just saying that it you know, we could never say to someone like you should accept this or now is the time to accept this, right? And you know, the grief process, you know, sometimes for some of us it takes a shorter time, sometimes it's longer. Actually, when we're thinking from a clinical standpoint, we don't even consider it complicated grieving before a 2-year period, right? And so we know with different things it could be a different amount of time. But you're right, like we be gentle with ourselves as we're going through that and be like, yeah, this moment, like I'm feeling really sad. Like there's a part of this that I'm really gonna miss. That makes so much sense. The way we would with a friend, right? And then maybe, you know, we are shifting our attention a few minutes later and it's like, dang, I just like nailed that. I did so well on this. Or like, you know, I like was able to, my first day at my job, you know, I just got through orientation. I feel like there's a lot of information, but like this feels right, like the right place for me. I'm really going to celebrate that.
Yeah.
And so we might go back and forth and just being able to shift, but allowing all of those processes to unfold.
I think I was going to say something too in regards to grief. I think there's fear that like, and this is like obviously like a natural evolution and part of life, but like in terms of the change that we talked about earlier, like will things be the same with like, you know, my friends and like the communities that I've built here, and like having trouble accepting that will inevitably change. Like of course like the connections you make will last, you hope, but sometimes things are different, and like I think I'm afraid of that. Even though it hasn't happened yet, I'm like anticipating that.
I think, again, like emotions are messengers. And so maybe that fear is reminding you that your relationships that you built here are really important to you. I have to say, at the end of this month, I'm going on a trip with my friends from college. We go every year. Yeah,
oh, that's so
because it was, and I am not in my 20s at all. So we've been keeping this tradition for quite a long time because it was important to us. And so that gets to be a choice that, you know, that choice doesn't leave you just because you're no longer an undergraduate student.
Oh, that's so fun. And related to this, like my friend wrote me like a card recently, just like as a grad congratulations gift. Wrote me a card, but like he included this quote in it that said like, along the lines of, it's like such a blessing to be able to miss something. Like after grad, it means that you have these like very meaningful relationships and connections that you made, and like the fact that you're gonna miss them so much means like that they meant something to you, and like they still mean something to you. And I don't know, I feel very blessed to have made such like beautiful friendships and connections while I've been here. And I don't know, I've been trying to kind of reframe my thinking towards this as less of like a status, because you know it's gonna change, but it's not like I'm losing like them forever. I feel lucky to have like even made these connections in the first place that I'll be sad to like
say goodbye to, but not goodbye.
Not like a permanent goodbye.
Yeah, they'll shift, and also you have the ability to create positive experiences. You have the ability to create positive relationships, and that can go with you wherever you are.
Should we dive into the Q&A before? I know that you have to.
Sure. Oh yeah. We had some student-submitted questions related to this, all seniors going through similar things to Kyra and I. Yeah. So we had some questions from them that we could potentially discuss.
Yes.
Oh, so one student said, am I the only one feeling like they're having a nervous breakdown? And the answer is no.
No. Strong no.
Strong no.
Times 3.
Yeah. We are proof. Kyra and I are proof. And like Dr. Dexter said, I think this is like a universal feeling.
Absolutely.
Not just at USC, not just like in college, but you are not the only one. Just know that. Just know that.
And I think you mentioned too, like there are tools that we can tap into within
Absolutely.
ourselves.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, like I get butterflies in my stomach every time I do something new. Like I'm, you know, I have so many experiences and accomplishments in lots of ways, but there's uncertainty when things are new. So that's okay, I think, to be scared. And can we rely on also our knowledge of what we're able to accomplish, our social support, all of these things as we're going through something that's challenging.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Our next question would be, we have a couple.
I've been thinking about how I can make the most of the little time I have left with all of my friends.
That's sweet. What do you all think?
We're also dealing with the same question.
I mean, for me, I think it's just being more intentional of like scheduling time and reaching out. Obviously it can be hard, like everyone, like maybe you're having family come and visit like for grad, so like that takes up a little bit of time. You know, finals still exist, unfortunately, but I don't know, I've been trying to be more intentional about like reaching out, especially if I know like we are going to be moving to different places, and just find like I've also been trying to like find the things that I enjoyed doing like earlier in college and like do those things again, whether it's like going to like this cafe or like the dining hall. Yeah, I went to the dining hall for the first time in like a year the other day, and it was great.
Take it all in.
Right. I think too, it's just like reminding yourself, like if there's someone that you want to reach out to or like spend more time with, like don't be afraid, like don't be like, oh, like I'll do it next time, like you don't know when the next time will be. So like just making, what you mentioned, like being intentional with that time and just trying to bask in it, I think is really helpful. What are your thoughts, Dr. Dexter?
I think that's all really true. I think one of the things you mentioned earlier was this idea that, we could label an emotion of like, I'm not my emotion. Same thing is true with thoughts, right? So we can notice like I don't know what I'm going to do, or I'm not going to be successful at this, right? And we can maybe say like, okay, I'm noticing the thought that I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm noticing the thought that, and can we remember our experiences, right? That if you are graduating from USC this semester, you have a lot of abilities and this a lot of accomplishments behind you.
Another question that we have is kind of related to what you mentioned, Jinny, about like how to deal with imposter syndrome if you don't know what you're doing post-grad. And I feel like that uncertainty that we talked about earlier is something that can be really hard for us to sit with at times.
Totally.
But
I think something that's really hard when we're going through a difficult moment is sometimes not only that's a difficult moment for most of us, right? It's always a little bit easier to have certainty than uncertainty, but we just don't get that choice always, right? We don't always control the other side of that decision. And so sometimes we're going through something hard, and not only are we going through something hard, but then we criticize ourselves on top of it. Well, because I don't know, it means this about me, it means that about me. And then sometimes we isolate from others because we're feeling maybe like a sense of not only imposter syndrome, but maybe like shame, self-doubt. And so I would really encourage folks to remind yourself that you're not alone when you're experiencing that. Most of us experience times that we are uncertain about things. We don't get something that we really put a lot of effort into, or we kind of, didn't achieve something that we wanted. And can we treat ourselves like we would a friend in that moment, remembering to stay connected and remembering to be kind to ourselves? How would we treat a friend in that moment? We'd probably offer them some kind words, right? We'd probably maybe even like something cozy and nice, right? Like cozy socks or a nice blanket, right? We probably wouldn't criticize them and say some pretty harsh things to them.
Yeah, as someone who was very recently in this job search process, I think my advice for this is also related to what you're saying, but give yourself grace. Know objectively that this job market is super super hard and difficult. So give yourself grace. Know that it's truly difficult for everyone, and also get off the LinkedIn. I think a lot of students go through the spiral of doom scrolling on LinkedIn, seeing everyone else's accomplishments. It seems like everyone else has something already lined up, but any other social media platform, it's not always what it seems, and you're only gonna notice the people who are posting about it, but not everyone is in that boat. So just stop the cycle of comparing yourself and doom scrolling on LinkedIn. I think it will save you a lot of mental energy. And I've been there.
It'll be okay. You have the tools within yourself to get through this hard thing, because you've probably done it before, multiple times.
Great point.
And then this final question, I think, before we start to wrap things up, is kind of really related to what we talked about how do you maintain the connections you've made throughout college, especially when your lives get so busy and when it might be really hard to do so. How do you maintain those friendships? I know you mentioned that you have a lot of experience of that. Best trip travels to your trip at the end of the month with your friends. That'll be really exciting for you.
I think, if relationships are important to you, it's an important value to you, then typically, we experience more long-term well-being if we're connected with our values, whether that's contributing to others, friendships, learning, whatever those values are. And if friendships are an important value to you, absolutely thinking of, how am I connecting with this value? Are there times in which I'm going to have to tolerate discomfort because I'm like on a work trip or I'm studying for a final and I can't have that connection with my friends? But can I, postpone that to a later date? So I think just finding time to identify what's important to you and then connect with that.
Yeah. I think there's also something exciting imagining catching up with these friends and learning about what they're up to. If they're moving to a new city, I'm excited to hear about what their new experience will be like, and if you're starting a new job, I'm excited to hear how you're adjusting. I'm excited to hear all these things too. So I think that is also alleviating some of my anxiety about maintaining those friendships. There's gonna be a lot of exciting things that we're gonna be sharing with each other, I think.
I think it's special to see how you were kind of there for those friends before they started this next chapter of their life, and you get to see how they evolve and how they change and how beautiful that is.
Yeah. For the day ones.
Yeah. For real.
The day ones. But yeah.
Okay.
I think this has been super helpful for me, honestly.
Yeah.
Again, these are all things I'm experiencing, Kyra and I are experiencing, so I think talking through it helps so much, rather than trying to avoid how I'm feeling.
Sure.
So this has been super, super helpful.
Because sometimes that can be easier. I'm not graduating, it's not happening, but I feel that's what my brain is trying to have me do. But I know that it's better to process what's really happening and remembering that we are very capable of getting through this change transition, even though it can be difficult with the right supports.
Yeah,
it's been super helpful, and I'm also so proud of you. I'm so
proud
proud of
you. Congratulations to all the seniors graduating this year.
You're not alone in the way that you feel, and I promise, we're right there with you.
Yeah, we are right there with you, and you have a support system.
Class of 2025!
Yeah, if anyone's struggling with any of these concepts, please remember to reach out to Student Health for any type of support. Of course, if it's an emergency, you can contact 911, Trojans Care for Trojans, or DBS.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dexter, for your time. Is there anything final that you wanted to leave, maybe the graduating class who are navigating this next time in their lives?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for offering this to our community. This is a community that's really special to me. I think really important to many of us for many reasons, but congratulations on your graduation, and thank you for offering this awesome service to our community, and fight on.
Fight on! Well, thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of The Gray Area. We are coming back for the summer. The next episode that you guys can look forward to is actually in collaboration with Queer to Peer, where we'll be discussing queer relationships and specifically how heteronormativity shows up in queer relationships. So be on the lookout for that this summer, and good luck with finals. Happy graduation, and see you next time.
Fight on!
Bye!
Bye!
Fight on!